Hey folks, this is Behemoth, and holy hell, do we have a matchup here for you today. It is the Clash of Titans, the matchup that we've been waiting for years. It is Maru versus Serral in a best of 5 in the playoffs. But now folks, before we get into the series, before we just let our brains collectively explode over how hyped this matchup is, well, I'm going to take a moment to remind you to like, comment, respond, do all that fun stuff, make the algorithm like us so we can keep doing content like this. Because holy hell, this is gonna be a insane series. I'm absolutely giddy. But with that over, that all done with that, we've talked about what we need to talk about. Let's introduce our players here. You know who they are, but you know, it's tradition. Spawning in the bottom left, in the red, he is the King of the North, the world champion, Serral. And in the upper right, in the blue, the 4-time GSL champion. He is the best Terran from Korea, the 4th horseman, Maru. And while we may never get the level of games or the hype quality of the games that we were looking for back in 2018, where Maru went and won, what was it, 4 GSLs in a row. Serral won literally everything, including BlizzCon. Well, the floor of competition has certainly risen up to meet them. I mean, we have Raynor and Clem in Europe, Max Packs on Ascendancy. And, well, Rogue has risen to the task. We have, hopefully Zest wins this season, the GSL, before he goes back to military. Trap Ascendant as the representative of the Protoss race. The floor, the skill floor, the gap between these players has certainly closed just a little bit, but Serral is Ascendant. He just won DreamHack Masters Summer, the international version, the season finals. Really storming his way through the bracket, only losing 2 maps to Trap in the group stage. So Serral truly Ascendant, Maru looking incredibly good, especially in this matchup. So yes, it's not 2018. We're not going to see that level of play, and this is not the grand finals. Or we're not going to see that amount of hype around these players. They're still very good. But it's Maru Serral. I find it very hard to complain about anything whatsoever. And look at this. We see a build that we may not have seen since 2018. I mean, I guess TY had his macro version, but in general, this is an old build. It's certainly a legit build, but it is an older one because it's going to be a 2-1-1 here from Maru. And let's talk about that just a little bit, because there's a reason that for the most part, we see Terrans not really going for this anymore. And there's a good reason why. When you go for a 2-1-1 like this, you cede all map control to the Zerg for the first 4.5-5 minutes in the game. I mean, yeah, you got a Reaper, and maybe you can kill off some Zerglings, but certainly once speed is done, you're not curtailing creep. You're not putting any pressure on the Zerg player whatsoever, so Serral will be able to stay on these 3 Zerglings that he has, really until he needs to build Zerglings to defend against the 2-1-1, which means you don't have to build that swell of Zerglings right as speed is finishing, right around that 3-3-30 mark that allows you to defend Hellions. Instead, you build drones, you build queens, you build things that are going to put you in a better position in the mid game. So because the Zerg can be that greedy, because the Zerg can just kind of play without a care, and by the way, their creep spread will be very good without Hellions kind of dancing at the edges, removing creep tumors. The Terran player, Maru, is extremely incentivized. He's extremely required to go and actually get economic damage, to get economic damage done in some way, sense or form. But it's also harder for him to, because the creep spread is going to be that much more developed. And the Zerg meta right now says, I get 7 queens, I get 8 queens. If I know it's a 2-1-1, I get even more, because I just need to not die, and I'll be in a fantastic spot. Okay, so now we have the medevacs underway just now. This is the timing that you're looking for, by the way. At around 4:30, 4:40, the medevacs are going to complete. At that point, it's 16 Marines on the map, run across the map. They hit the Zerg base right around 5 minutes. And now it's just going to be up to Serral to figure out what's happening. I mean, he knows what's happening now. He's been playing this game as if he knows. We have very few Zerglings on the map, only 9. and he should be able to pump out a decent bit more. As there we go, Baneling Nest underway as well. And the more modern way to handle a 2-on-1 does involve a Baneling Nest eventually. You hold the first kind of bit of pressure with just your 30-odd lings and your queens, and then the second round is reinforcements happen while you add in some Banelings, and you're fine. Okay, so now we do see Maru here attacking on what is perhaps the weakest kind of creep position on the map on the left-hand side. He's coming from high ground to low ground, and the creep teamers haven't really found their way there. But I mean, Serral, he's not going to allow Maru to unload. Now, if Maru was able to unload, that's where things get a little bit scary, because you need the solid 30-odd links and the queens firing and maybe some main links, because if the Marines can get on that clump like behind a mineral line on the edge of a base, suddenly you just lose all your Marines. The stim is too powerful. It just becomes too much of a problem. But Maru has not been allowed to do that, so he's going to sit here on the edge of creep, on this, really this only position that he can attack through. I mean, look at the creep spread in the middle of the map on the right-hand side. It's just not really going to be a thing. It's too far away from any of the bases to really get too much to happen here. Now, the queens are just going to have some fantastic transfusions. The Widowmine shot is going to do a good job of eating a lot of queen energy, right? AoE does mean that more queens will have to spend energy. Now, we will start to see some queens go on down here, because again, Serral, he doesn't have his Baneling speed yet. He can't really engage off of creep, and yeah, one queen has gone down, but I love the spore here in the main base. It's just going to make it that much more difficult for Maru to find his way on in, and Serral, he's in a good spot. He's already got Zerglings here. We should see some patrolling. The rest of them go back down on the low ground to ward things away, and that's exactly what we see, because Serral, he's no spring chicken. He knows what's up. He is the former world champion in this meta. He knows how the game goes, and knows how he needs to deal with it. So Maru here, he's going to continue to try to find value on the left-hand side, and he will kind of keep pecking away at creep, which is something. It's not really everything. And look at this, Maru, very interestingly, does he have 2 eBays? He does, but he's only opted for +1 attack. Now, this is probably a mistake looking at his gas count, but it does feel like he's kind of leaning into this TVP idea, assuming that this is intentional. You get +1, you get stim, you get combat shields, you're trying to make something happen here, but now Serral's going to get on top of this bio. Decent connections. There are very few Marines left from that initial three medevac drop, and now, yeah, okay, this is what you want. So Serral is now stabilized. Again, we talked about the creep spread. This is where things get scary. It takes so long for Maru to get to any sort of threatening position that Serral can now run by if he wants to. He can now set up massive flanks if he wants to. He can just put himself in a really good position to clean away, to absolutely clean up this push from Maru on the right-hand side. So there we go. We see the big flank coming on in on the mini-map, and actually now on the screen as Serral's getting ready to make this engagement happen. Now, ideally, he waits until he has 1-1, but that's not going to matter here. Zergling's getting on top of these tanks immediately. One tank goes down. Second tank's going to die as well. Friendly fire. She is a cruel mistress indeed. As now Maru, the rest of this army is going to get cleaned on up. Anything that drops will die. And Maru will be pushed away from the 4th base location. That being said, this is Maru, and this is a 2-1-1. There are a lot of Marines that you have access to, a lot of production that you have maybe a little bit earlier on than you would have in other situations. I mean, yes, this does mean that your economy is a little bit behind where it would otherwise be, but it's fine, because you do have this added pressure that you're able to accomplish. As a couple queens will go on down, and I love this position for Maru. I hate it as a Zerg player, where you just kind of sit on the high ground and deny a lot of mining on the low ground. But now, well, it looks like Maru has well and truly been banished from his positions. I mean, he does have this drop, but it's only 2 medevacs. It's 7 Marines. It's really not going to be able to accomplish a lot. And now Maru has well and truly been pushed back. It's time for Serral to reestablish his presence. Again, creep spread everywhere. Reestablish that. Take that 5th base once again. And I do want to see 2-2 underway. Serral has the money for it. And this is one of the downsides of this style that Serral is using to defend. It's how he has to defend. But one of the downsides, all of his queens are so far forward that he is kind of lacking in larva. Notice only 5 larva on the field right now. And he had a decent bang. So that is, again, one of that is downsides. You either have your queens defensively on the map, or you have them injecting, and you can't really have them do both. And when you're spending energy on transfuses, well, that's not inject energy anymore. But now it looks like the last of these drops for the moment has been repelled. As I guess we got that medevac behind the main base, but you put a spore there, you put a queen there. Not going to be all that easy to get anything down. So now Serral, he's going to feel pretty happy about things, as he will catch this army on the right side. He has knocked down a decent amount of tanks. There are only 3 on the map right now. And, well, he's going to be able to get in the hive. I think he's going to go into lurker play in this game. I really don't like Ultra Tech. I mean, maybe it's a transitional composition, but nothing more than that. And, oh, you love to see it here. Bailey landmines going on in. And this is something that we've started to see the top tier Zergs do more and more and more in recent months. We saw, well, who can forget the Rainer connection against Clem. And I want to say it was game 4 of DreamHack Masters, the lower bracket, the European version. That just knocked Clem out of the game right there. But we are starting to see players like Serral and Rainer do it a little bit more. And I like this. It's just, at the very least, it's 250 extra minerals that the Terran has to spend because, well, it's an extra scan off of creep. So it looks like Maru here will be able to knock Serral back down to 4 bases. But, well, it's actually not all that bad because while this has happened, I mean, the Liberator's not finding any value. Maru has kind of been knocked down onto 3 bases as well. Here's this drop. Well, you love to see what Maru's doing here where he just kind of, oh, no. Serral just half a second too late. He's not going to get nearly as much as he could have. Almost, Serral. Almost. But Serral absolutely, he finds himself in a fantastic position in this game. He's equal on army supply against a pushing Terran. He's up a base. I mean, the 4th base is kind of be reestablished, but he's up base just a little bit. His economy is in a good spot. His 2-2 is actually going to be ahead of the Terran's 2-2. He's got his hive done, and he is actually going Ultra Viper in this game. I mean, I can understand why in some parts. If he is as ahead as he feels that he is, or if he feels that he is ahead as he is, then he can make something happen here. The Ultras are a great timing option before the Terran player is really able to get on into 3-3. So maybe that's going to be something here, as that is not a great engagement coming on in from Serral on the left-hand side. He can't really make anything happen on the right side either with all of these tanks. And this drop is actually confounding Serral's interest just a little bit. Again, Medevac that was kind of hiding behind the mineral line. Well, we'll get cleaned on up as we will see Liberators once again get taken down as Maru's getting an extremely late drilling clause in this game. It's never going to be bad in a game. Well, okay, maybe if it was just like Hydra or Lurker or something, sure. But in this game that Serral's playing that is just so focused on Lingbane pressure or Lingbane composition, well, drilling clause is never going to be bad. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit late for Maru, but I definitely do not hate it. The Ultra Cavern is done. We have Kindness Plating underway. And pretty soon, we're going to see 3-5 Ultras, 3-3, or like effectively 6-3 Lings with Adrenal Glands popping up out onto the field. Technically, we already have 4-2 Lings. Anyway, and they're going to start to really cause problems here because Maru's, well, he's going to be down on armor upgrades for quite a while. And notice he has not started +3 attack. His economy's not in the best spot. It's better than it was. And he is on 78 workers. But he's only on, I want to say, 3 command centers. Yeah, only on 3 commanders. Just triple factory, though. That is a commitment there. But I mean, that's how you play into the late game. You play your Bioforce for a while, and then you know eventually the Zerg is going to build an army that you can't beat with just Bio. Whether it is Lingbane Ultra, whether it is Lurker Viper, whatever it is. You know that you need more than just 4M. So you get into triple factory, you get into Ghosts, and you have some fun with that. And now we do have the Zerglings looking to roll on in. Not the best connections. That's on a lot of Marauders, as these Baneling landmines are not going to get anything done. But Serral, he's going to remax. He does have a fairly decent economy. Although that being said, the Bank of Maru is starting to increase rather dramatically. And Serral, well, he's been trading pretty evenly, but that does put him in arrears just a little bit. What are these Vipers doing on the right side? Are they just joining the army? I mean, that is... You know what? Wait, is that a harass? No? Okay. That's actually just a Ling that's looking to deny a base. I don't know what these Vipers are for. I mean, I know what they're for. They're great against tanks. It's always nice to drop a Blinding Cloud on Bio and force them to split and just eat Baneling shots. They're good against, medevacs, all that fun stuff. But I don't know why these Vipers were there. I guess they were just misrallied. As now we will see the drop come on in. One medevac will go down as the Queens start to fire away. And yeah, part of this army is just going to go on down. And this drop that Maru has set up, I mean, that's a really nice spot for us. It's not going to get all that much here, as we're going to see some parasitic bombs on top of all of these medevacs here. The Vipers are still alive as Lings look to flood on forward, get some really nice friendly fire Widowmine shots, and they will be able to do so. So now Lings, Banes, Ultras are going to find their way on top of this 5th base of Maru. But hey, the Planetary is not done. Serral almost wishes it was, because then the base, it would be dead. So now Serral's on 3-3. Maru is at 2-2. But he does have 3-3. It's getting closer. And yes, we talked at the start of this game about how Romanticide is, well, Romanticide and 2K are probably the two biggest maps in the field, but Romanticide is much more of a turtling map than 2K Atmos is. But you can certainly a player like Maru, who's, by the way, we talk about him being the best Terran in Korea, probably second best TVZ player. I mean, I think Clem is just a little bit better. But point being, there is no one in the world that is better at taking a game later than Maru, and his late game control is just absolutely stellar. But Zerglings, Banelings, Ultras, everything is going to run on in. This third base will get broken as 19 workers do go down. Zerglings taking tremendous trades. Now the EMP is actually what's going to save this fight in part here for Maru, as the Vipers will run out of energy, so the tanks on the high ground will not be perennially blinding clouded. They will not be abducted. But still, in the blink of an eye, folks, 40 workers went down. Ling counterattack, or Ling run by on the upper left side. I got about, what, 20 workers. We saw 20 workers die in the third base. Now Maru, he's only on 49 workers. And the economy from Serral is really starting to leap ahead in leaps and bounds. And more than that, Serral has gained a 1,000 resource advantage in the trays over the last minute or so. He was down 3K, now he's down 2K. So better economy plus better trades. Well, that's how you know it's a good spot here for our Zerg player. He's got 30 army supply lead as well. Those Widowmine shots, though, we talked about resources lost. It's back to 3K, just like that. As the Banelings look to run on in, the Ultras here chomping away, should be able to get the planetary. And there they go, but not at the expense of a lot of Ultras, as the snipes will go on down here. And this is the, oh wow, Ultra Speed is only just now completing. This is the time where I would love to see a transition into Vipers or into Broodlord, something that has a little bit more AoE, that is a little bit more microable, that is a little bit more dynamic on the field than just kind of the big beefy Ultras. Haha, run into your army and make something happen. Because Maru, as well as poorly as he is traded, as his economy has been down for the most part in this game, this army that he's built is objectively terrifying. There are 9 ghosts on the map. We have 4 tanks, a bunch of liberators. This is such a difficult army for Serral to deal with, so he's not going to. He's going to say, okay, look, you can take my base. That's fine. I'm going to get on top of all of your production. I'm going to kill off yet more of your economy. I'm just going to get a better economic trade at the end of the day. And I don't really care that you got my base, because I killed 10 workers. I don't think you got very many of mine. I killed off a decent amount of your production. I killed some of your rally. And that's going to be the acceptable trade here, because I've already expanded to the bottom right. And as soon as you leave, I'm going to be able to retake the upper left. And that's pretty much what happened. Serral pretty much taking N-1 bases that he can reasonably be expected to take. Those bases that are right near the Zelnaga are weird, where it feels like neither player really has a claim to them. So saying, oh, that's a Widowmine shot. Saying a certain player has a reasonable expectation to take in this game, I'm not even sure that's fair when we talk about, you know, what a Zerg, what a Terran is going to expand to. But anyways, we have a big engagement coming on in here. Blinding clouds on top of all the tanks are going to be fantastic, but the Ghosts are going to put themselves in the corner. And again, no one puts Baby in a corner, but the Ghosts put themselves. The Ultras are getting sniped on down. Bailey's connecting, but folks, Ghosts are not light units, and they're going to cloak on up here. There's no detection. These Ghosts are going to win the fight indeed, and some snipes on the Corruptors at the end of the day. Well, they're going to make everything, and that is exactly the type of fight that Maru has been needing for a while, as now it's 4K resources. Serral, he had that one really good trade, but he is bleeding out just about 1,000 resources at a time every time he takes a big fight, which in this game maybe is not all that important right now, but it will start to become important as bases mine out and as Maru continues to be able to maintain some semblance of an economy. Yes, he has lost, what, 60 workers? Just about 59 workers over the course of this game. But he's still just about 60 workers. He has a decent amount of command centers now, of orbitals, and he has the mules that he needs to really maintain this mineral economy. And honestly, for the most part, Terran doesn't really need gas. Although interesting, I mean, he has gotten up to 2-2 mech here. +2 ground attack, +2 armor. I kind of would like to see +1. Actually, I guess the math doesn't really matter if you get a +1 air attack against ultras with liberators. I don't think that minimizes the shots an ultra takes, or diminishes the amount of shots an ultra takes. Anyway, Serral now, he's kind of in this weird spot where he's got a lot of lings but doesn't have a lot of gas heavy units, and he is really mineral starved. He got 4,500 gas, but he is just so Ling Bane, well, formerly Queen, but so Ling Bane heavy in this game that he doesn't really seem to know what he wants to spend his gas on. I mean, sure, Banelings are great, but they're only 25-25. At this point, that's going to impact his mineral count a lot more than his than his gas count. And more than that, I mean, it's effectively Marauder Ghost at this point. Ghosts are not light units. Banelings do not trade all that cost effectively against them unless you get really lucky on a big bump. So, I mean, with that being said, Banelings aren't even the best tool here unless it's, you know, a matter of, okay, I'm going to make my opponent kind of split, and that's going to be a thing. So more and more Banelings are going to get found on out here. And let's look at resources lost. It is, yeah, it's now 6K. And Maru is mining just as much as Serral is, give or take. This is starting to be a problem here for Serral as he's down about 40 army supply. And I cannot believe Maru is in this position in this game. He was down 2 to 3 upgrades. He was down bases, he was down economy, he was down a lot of supply. But he's just through these incredible trades and through that fight on the bottom side of the map where he kept his 9 ghosts alive, did not lose them, and killed off literally everything. He found his way back into this game. This base will go on down. Zergling's looking for an engagement, but Zerglings by themselves, I don't care that they have cracked. I don't care that they're effectively 6-3. Does not matter. This army that Maru has built for himself is too damn strong for these Zerglings to really take the engagement. And now, well, Maru, he is really taking a hold of this game number 1. I mean, yeah, he's going to struggle to take the upper left base. And yeah, it looks like his third base has been floated somewhere else. But if we look at economy, it's not true. Well, it's terrible right now, but it's not going to be terrible in a second once the mules drop again. And more importantly, every time I pull up resources lost, the gap is increasing. It's now up to 8K. It was 6. Serral is just kind of running into that point that Zerg can run into in late game where you're just so starved for one bit of resource that you cannot build the complex armies that you need to really fight a late game opponent here. That's exactly what's happening. Once again, we're going to see Maru go for that fight. Yes, this time there is detection, but it does not really matter at all. As the Corruptors are getting sniped on down, the Ghosts, well, there's no detection anymore. Everything is dying for Serral. He's now down at half the army supply of his opponent. Banelings are going to look to roll on in, but they will not get the base. Only 13 workers, and honestly, Maru's pretty okay with that. He has the mules that he needs to make this happen, and he will be forced back for the time being as Zerglings finally run on in, but it's 91 army supply to 46. And Maru is actually able to spend his he's able to spend his money a little bit more efficiently. I mean, a pure Marine army in the late game, not great, but it's certainly better than a pureling army. And by the way, that's a lot of Widow Mines. We have 15 Widow Mines on the field right now, and I love this adaptation from Maru, right? He had a lot of tanks early on. He's on 3 factory siege tank now. But in a game like this, he understands. Or he's on 3 factories. Sorry, not 3 factory siege tank. He understands that Serral's just like, yeah, I'm going to play Ling Bane. Well, if you get up to 15, 16 Widow Mines, playing Ling Bane against that is really not fun. You're just guaranteed to take losses in a game where Serral just doesn't have the mineral income he needs. Those losses that you're going to take are really hard to replace. We're not at that point in the game where Zerglings just kind of feel free and you just kind of spam as many as you have in the bank at the moment. But, you know, they do not feel like they cost all that much. So once again, Serral's going to look to take an engagement here. And the splits on these Marauders are going to be fantastic. Widow Mine shots are going to be fantastic as well. Serral, once again, he's going to take the negative in that fight. And it's funny, you look at the supplies, you might say, hey, you know what? Maru, Serral, they're pretty close. It's only an 8 supply lead. But then you look at the army supply, and it is a 56 army supply lead here. And Maru, I mean, he's just not been rebuilding all that many SCVs for the majority of this game. Mules are enough when we're taking trades like this. It's now 11K. Because again, when you're playing in cost-inefficient composition, you're hoping to win on economy. And Serral really can't. Yeah, he's got 2K500, but I mean, I'm just looking at the mineral count he has at the bottom of the screen, and I'm looking what his supply is. He's just really struggling to resupply this army that he keeps trying to build. But I do like this. We got a couple infestors underway, and when you're in a dire economic straits, and primarily when you're in a game where you have no minerals and a lot of gas, you build Vipers, you build infestors, you build these gas-heavy energy units that can find value over time. That being said, I mean, Maru has scans for days, and he has EMPs, so these infestors are maybe not going to be quite as useful as they might otherwise be. And now Maru's going to find his way really into the last mining base that Serral has here. Serral has to win this fight if he wants to have any shot in staying in this game, and it's not going to be enough. The single G. Maru, he takes game 1. So now, we get into game number 2, and it remains to be seen whether Maru goes for the same opener that he did in game number 1, or whether he changes it up a little bit. I would like to remind folks, there's a reason we don't see 2-on-1s anymore. Not really, I mean, maybe on ladder sometimes, but not at the highest competitive level. It's just so exploitable. Now, game number 1 was not won off the 2-on-1. Game number 1 was won off of a fantastic late game comeback from Maru, where honestly, I mean, he was behind. He was what? He had traded 1,000 within 1,000 resources of Serral, who had done a really good job of establishing his economy, who was up upgrades, who got into lair tech faster, who got into hive tech faster than the 3-3 of Maru, was even started. It was not a good game there for Maru. It was not looking good. But then he started to find value. He started to find damage. He kept knocking bases down. He kept knocking economy down. And then, well, I don't know whether it was him trading better or Serral trading worse. But that 1,000 resources loss differential turned into 2K. It turned into 4K. It turned into 11K. And all of a sudden, Serral, who had a better economy all game, who had been trading extremely well all game, was not doing that anymore. And Maru just started to find advantages. And then he won that fight on the bottom right side of the map where he did not lose his ghosts. And that really was the nail in the coffin, the icing on the cake. Because while the game went on for another 5-6 minutes, it was at that point where we started to see that Serral just did not have the type of economy that he needed. Where, yeah, he had more bases, and yes, he had more workers, but he just was not mining enough minerals. His gas count was so high. I mean, when was the last time you saw a Zerg player lose because they were mineral starved, right? When they were at, like, when they just couldn't mine any more minerals, they had 4,500 gas in the bank. That's just not a thing. More often than not, in late game, it's because the Zerg can't afford any high-tech units anymore. They're just kind of stuck on Lings, and that doesn't trade well. They can't afford gas units, right? They can't afford Vipers and Infestors and Ultras and Lurkers or whatever it is. They just run out of, well, being able to afford the gas units. So the fact that we saw the opposite really makes that a rare game and makes it a really good job of Maru just putting on so much pressure that in part Serral just didn't feel like he had the time to build these expensive slow building units, which on a map like 2000 atmospheres is extremely impressive from the Korean Terran. But hey, it does look like we will have a 2-on-1 coming on in after all. So game number 2 is going to be a repeat of game number 1. Well, sorry, not quite true. The build for Maru is going to be a repeat of game number 1. Oxide's a bit smaller of a map. We're going to have to see whether he can maybe hit a little bit faster, whether he can leverage this pressure just a little bit stronger, because it's kind of funny. You look at the kind of the 3-4 base setup here, and if you take away the rest of the map and you take away the shading, you hit that button that allows you to only see the bases in the minimap and the units, and you actually don't see the tiling on the minimap, and you just say look at the core 4 bases of Oxide and 2000 atmospheres. I mean, they are almost identical. So we're gonna have to see whether maybe Maru is doing this. He just feels like on maps like this where you kind of have that high ground expansion that you can push on in, that's a little harder to push creep, and then the really nice pushing positions outside of the 4th base, that he just thinks that this style of map is really good for that 2-on-1, that continued pressure that he can attempt to snowball. Anyway, Serral's doing everything right thus far. He only has 4 Zerglings on the map. He's not built a bunch to deal with the Hellions that are not coming. And in fact, he went for the solar efficiency play where you kind of delay your gas. So in effect, you get your speed at 4 minutes, which is kind of a risky play against Hellion play. Sometimes the Terran's going to look to dive on in. But in a game like this, I mean, yeah, Serral knows what's happening. He sees this amount of Marines. There's nothing else that it can be. And Maru, well, he's going to look to move out the map and do something. It should be noted, of course, that the medevacs are going to be slightly late compared to that last game, compared to the build. They're going to be done closer to 437, 440 versus 430, which means, well, the medevacs are going to be slightly later. That being said, it's a shorter map, so probably going to be 6 one way, half dozen the other in terms of when the medevacs actually start unloading on the other side of the map. But this does mean that once again, Serral's going to have everything that he needs to defend this first push. He's going on up to just about 20 odd Lings probably. He has, what was that number? Go back here, 9. He's going up to 10 Queens. He's got a Baneling Nest halfway done. He's going to be in a very happy position to hold off at least the initial pushes of this 2-1-1, and even better, he has creep spread on the high ground. It's not going to last for very long, but it provides vision. It lets Serral know exactly where this 2-1-1 is, and notice what he's doing. The Queens are on the low ground here. They say, look, you're not going to really push into me all that easily. And he sends the Lings, now he's going to send them on the low ground because they do have to deal with this. The Queens will eventually run out of energy, but he sends the Lings back into his main base immediately because he knows how dangerous this position from Maru is. He knows how, well, potentially problematic it can be, where the Terran says, ah, yes, I'm fighting in the front. I'm going to run back into the main base. I'm going to get the unload, and then you're going to die. Because make no mistake about it, if this 2-on-1 does complete, it does unload, and the Queens are not there to defend. These 17 Marines, these 18 Marines, or 15 Marines, these 16 Marines, can do a doozy of a job knocking down so many Zerglings, especially if they're in a nice clumped up position. So with that being said, well, Maru, he's got his third medevac coming on in now. He has 1-1 started. And most importantly, of course, combat shields are done. So the bio here is a lot tankier than it might otherwise be. And that does mean that Serral just has to take this a little bit more seriously. It's going to be hard for him to take the fight right now. Of course, Baneling speed is not done. So any sort of engagement that happens, nice flood there. He will only lose 3 Banelings to that aggression, to that Widowmine. But any sort of engagement that he probably tries to take, for the most part, it's going to get target fired on down. But that's going to be some decent Baneling connections here from Serral. And Maru, he will be forced back. So yeah, Serral is traded a little bit worse, but at this point in the game, his economy is better. He has his 4th base underway, as right around the same time that Maru is taking his 3rd. Yeah, would he have preferred to take no losses? Absolutely, but that's just not the reality of how this game is played. And he's going to consider himself in a pretty fantastic spot again, especially considering the creep spread that he has been able to develop in this game. And I know it's a kind of a prevailing topic when I'm talking about these games. Oh, how is the creep spread? Is the creep spread good? Is it not? But especially when you're looking at games like this, what Maru is trying to play, where his entire game is predicated on leveraging as much pressure as possible and forcing Serral to eventually crack under it. Well, in a game like that, creep spread really can be the make or break for it. If Serral is able to make it so that Maru is going to have to go through a couple scans to find his way on into a base, something like that, what that means is that he can start to pick away at it. He can start to build some really good fights, some really good surrounds that make it nigh impossible for Maru to take the trades that he's looking for and really put that pressure into a position. So now, well, we're going to see Baneling's big surround coming in here. Maru on the right-hand side. Not really going to do much with this yet, but it is pressure. It is something that Serral will have to deal with rather soon. Ideally, Serral jumps on top of this. Let's hope that we do have Baneling's on into the 3rd base. 7 workers will go down. That could have been better. That could have been controlled a little bit better, but it looks like it was just shift clicked in. And still, 7 workers, not negligible when the Terran economy is already rather low. But now, again, what we were saying, ideally, Serral looks to jump on this as the siege tanks are unsieged, as they are going and repositioning. But in this game, well, Maru's going to hide that he is unsieging and resieging with a Liberator in the 3rd base of Serral with the Marines as well. So with that being said, well, the tanks are going to be able to get into a nice position here. And now 1 tank will go down, but I think the tank on the low ground is going to have enough Marines around it that it will be able to survive. And actually, yeah, the Zerglings, the Banelings, they're going to be forced to retreat because that tank is still firing strong, and they're just not going to be able to get on top of it. And you do not want to waste Banelings on a tank. I mean, with the Marines behind, that's just never going to be a cost-effective trade. So now we're going to have the tank on a much more pressure-filled position. I mean, it can't actually target fire the base down, but it can certainly target fire down everything attempting to kill to defend that base. And now we're starting to see the rally coming in from Maru. You love to see it. We see some little blinking dots on the minimap here, as a decent amount of Zerglings from Serral are going to go and knock down a lot of this rally. But again, the rally is not just the problem. It is this push here with these 2 tanks coming on in. So Baneling's looking to make the connections they're looking for. Tanks are going to start to go on down. 1 tank goes down. 2nd tank dead as well. Maru's going to win the fight on the right-hand side. He's going to win the fight on the left-hand side as well, as the Queens are transfusing for all of their mites at this Zingling run-by that was knocking down reinforcements. Well, it's not going to get that much economy. So yes, the Queens should be able to stabilize. The Queens will stay alive for the most part, but look at their energy bars. We have like 2 or 3 transfuses left on this meat shield that is these 14 Queens. And now they're going to start to go on down here. Now that's going to be a nice Baneling shot, but the tanks are here once again. The rally from Maru is just oppressive in this game, and it feels like Serral's kind of lost his position on this 4th base. Maru, the fact that he can kind of feel really comfortable and actually firing consistently on this base now, well, that's a bit of a problem. So now Serral's going to have to attempt to make this hold if he's ever going to make it. Banelings are looking to go on in, but Maru, he's got everything that he needs. The tanks are not going down here, and it looks like Maru has what he needs to take this 4th base down. Just target fired for a second. That's going to be all she wrote. Meanwhile, of course, Serral, he has reestablished mining. Not reestablished mining, excuse me, but he has been able to establish another base on the left side, and the drones should mostly go over there, as yeah, now this base is dead with his next bit of rally. And Serral, I mean, his economy's not good. He's on 66 workers. He's lost his 4th base. He does have what was a 5th base, now a 4th. But it's not really mining just yet. Now Maru's just going to stim on into the natural here. The mainly is going to get target fired on down, but Serral realizes that this is the time that he can look to go use and knock down the tank. So he will do so. And now there's not a lot of staying power in this army of Maru. Every Marine in the army is about 50% HP. The tanks are gone. No one of mine. So nothing that he can really rally around and look to defend and kind of really establish a bulkhead. But that's fine because he's killed the base. And he has the 4th base getting up on his own, which means that he's going to be pretty successful in staying in that like 1 base behind scenario that is the standard for this game, right? As a Terran player, you don't want to go 2 bases behind. As a Zerg player, you don't want to go even. So this kind of 1 base delta is going to be exactly what Serral is looking for. As this pressure on the right-hand side is not going to get a lot done, but 5-6 workers will go down here. We should see the Spore die as well as Widowmine shot. Nice attempted split from Serral, but we'll still get 5 or 6 lings. And this is what makes Maru just so gosh darn terrifying. He's never just, yes, I'm attacking the left. It's a big push. You should be afraid, Serral. Have you considered defending us and building a surround and crushing my army? No. He's got this army on the right. He's got the army on the left. He's maybe even got an army in the center if he's really feeling really bold. And that just makes it so much more difficult. It's not even a matter of, do I have enough APM to go and defend every position? It's, do I have the game sense and the APM to make sure that I split my army appropriately to make sure that I win fights on both fronts? Because that's what's hard. I mean, you're going to see Maru here in this game. At some points, the army on the left is going to be bigger. On some points, the army on the right is going to be bigger. And he does a really good job of shuffling this around. So it's not like a constant, I need the majority of my army on the left side and my right needs to be a little bit less. No, it's like, okay, how much does he have here? I need to make sure I scout it appropriately so I defend appropriately. Serral will have done that in this game as he's going to crush the army on the left-hand side. The tanks, once again, they do go down. This Liberator should die as well. And Serral's kind of stabilizing on about 20 army supply down. He is starting to get a decent amount of tanks here as the Banelings, they will find this bio, but yeah, the pickup should be there. Maru's on top of things. That's going to be a pretty good connection, even still, but look at resources lost. At this point in the time, last game, Serral was trading just about even. Maybe he's 1,000 resources behind. This time he's down to 6,000, and his economy has not been nearly as developed. So we are starting to see a very large supply lead break open here between Maru and Serral in this game number 2. This is not a game that Maru has to go turtle and go three factory tank just to make sure that he stays into it and go to 25 minutes, or I think it was 23 minutes, 22:50, something like that. Now, this is a game where he can really put the pedal to the metal and start to he has been, but really start to stress Serral in this late game now that he's on 4 bases. He can pretty much take a 5th base whenever he wants, as long as it's on the left-hand side where Serral is really having to defend appropriately. But also, again, the rally from Maru is making things rather difficult. So Maru's going to look to target this base down as he does get the base on the right-hand side. But there's just going to be enough Banelings. He will be forced back, but again, that's a 33%, 25% HP base, which means that the next pressure from Maru, the next set of reinforcements, is going to make it even more difficult. So Serral, I love the burrowed Banelings all over the map. Maybe I don't like 6 burrowed at once. I like the idea where you maybe unburrow 2 at a time and convince Maru that nothing's happening, but still, one scan knocks down 6 Banes, and that's not exactly affordable to Serral in this game. That being said, once again, he's really not doing a great job of balancing his mineral income and his gas income. He's sitting here on 1,600 gas and just out of minerals. So, yeah, he does have a hive underway, but this is not a game where he's going to be up 2 to 3 upgrades over his Terran opponent. No. Maru, he has 3-3 underway, and this is that traditional inflection point. It's not for another minute, but that traditional inflection point where the Terran has 2-2, or has 3-3, excuse me, and the Zerg player has 2-2, and suddenly the trades are just, they're bad before, but you're kind of expecting that because, well, that's how that works. But then it gets 3-3 and you cannot win fights anymore. Now, this is going to be a great trade here from Serral. He will knock down 3 tanks. Banelings are going to get on top of this bio. The Marauders go down. Everything that's expensive about this army will go down. And actually, Serral, he's starting to find a couple bulkheads on multiple sides of the map here. So he will get this army on the left-hand side as well. So, you know what? He's finding... Oh, and he's going to get another tank here. This is actually starting to be a really good little bit of a moment here from Serral. But if you look at the supply, I'm not sure that's enough. Yeah, he killed off 3 or 4 tanks in that instance. As that last tank looks like it will survive. But still, 90 army supply to 54. He's going to lose this 4th base once again. Yeah, Lings are going to show up, but it's not going to be... It's not going to matter at all. GG. Maru, he goes up 2-0. Okay, so now game number 3. And folks, Maru looks dominant. He's won games 1, game 2. Yeah, game 1 he was behind. But it didn't matter because he took it back in 22, 23 minutes. In game 2, I mean, he never trailed. Yeah, he didn't get enough damage done with a 2-on-1 at the start, but after that, I mean, it was just strength to strength, finding good trades, never making it so Serral could really establish the economy that he wanted. That's the big deal when we look at this game, where Serral was really never at that nice 80 drone, 85 drone, 86 drone count that you want if you're going purely Bane. He's kind of stuck at 66, 70 for the majority of that game. And his bases kept getting sniped. He kept taking worse and worse trades, and his upgrades were slow. So really everything really going wrong for Serral in that game. And so we're going to have to see whether Maru looks to do it again. He's done it for the first 2 maps in the series, but you also got to remember, we talked about this in the last game a little bit. Maps 1 and 2, 2000 Atmospheres and Oxide, have extremely similar kind of core 4 base setups, right? With the rocks outside of the 4th base, and then high ground position outside of the 3rd. That's a little bit harder to spread creep on, and they're very similar. Lightshade, though, not as much. And in fact, well, Lightshade's a pretty vulnerable map to counterattacks with the kind of 3 discrete attack patterns and the line of sight blockers that do exist. So this may suit Serral just a little bit more, and I was about to say, we may see Maru go for something a little bit else because the bases are not nearly as similar, but no. Second racks going on down. This is just how Maru says, yeah, Serral is a great player, but this is how I feel that I can beat him. And who am I to say he's wrong? It's worked for him 2 games in a row. Game 1 was a little iffy, and we saw kind of the downsides of Maru going for the build that he did go for, even if he was able to take it late. But I mean, game 2. Oh, game 2. Now we're going to see the Reaper go on in, and it's interesting to notice. We will see Zergling go on down, which is just about maybe the extent of damage that Serral expects to take. If you all remember from watching Serral Clem from DreamHack, Serral was in the finals. Serral was going 6 lings every time against Clem's Reaper because that's how much he respected the Reaper micro of Clem. That's how much he was kind of worried about really dealing with it. Against Maru, he has gone for 4 Zerglings every single game, and part of this may be, you know, cross-server play, where he's like, honestly, maybe if I'm offline, I do go up to 6 links, but because it's cross-server here, I don't think that you're going to have the Reaper micro at quite the level that necessitates 6 links. I don't know. It may just be that, you know, again, Maru, Clem, both incredible TVZ players, but their strengths are in different ways. Maru, his multitasking, of course, incredible. His micro, incredible, but really it's his late game. His ability to split a map and just out-trade a Zerg in like the 15 to 20 minute range. That's what makes him, in my mind, that's what defines his TVZ. I mean, we all remember Solar versus Maru Katowice. He's behind, he lands a nuke. There are plenty of games like that where he either makes a big move in the late game or his Ghost Tank Liberator control is the best in the world. And it's by a significant margin that he just is able to just do such a good job of greeting things out, of just taking it out in the late game. Not to say he can't win early, but again, that's where his strength does lie, which is also almost kind of why it's weird to see Maru going for a 2-on-1 here, because this is a very early game aggressive option. It's almost like he's saying that he doesn't want Serral to get comfortable in the mid game because he doesn't feel comfortable there. But again, Maru, his late game TVZ prowess is, in my mind, second to none. So again, I think this is just more of kind of a snipe build that he's like, yeah, Serral, this is how I think I kill you. And it's really going to be interesting to see whether we see a resurgence of 2-on-1, because we talked about the downsides of this build in the in game number 1, right? Just how free the Zerg is for the first 5 minutes of the game. But it's going to be interesting to see whether we see this become more common in TVZ in the coming months, in DreamHack, I don't think there is a TVZ left in this season, the GSL. But yeah, in maybe next season, the GSL, whatever the case may be. But look at this. This is, So we're going to see the Cloaked Widowmines. Okay, that's what it's going to be. I'm like, is this Cloak? Is it Hellbats? No, we don't have any Hellions underway. This is just your standard 2-on-1. But behind this, we're going to see Cloaked Widowmine drops. And this is pretty cool. So Serral in this game, he's just going to be expecting the 2-on-1. He's going to defend. It's going to be fine. Notice, by the way, that Serral, again, is not doing a really... His creep spread on the right side, I kind of... on that outlier position on his base is not going to be the best. And Zergling's actually going to be a little bit late here. So Maru's going to be able to unload a couple Marines But I don't think, yeah, he's not going to be able to get enough to really make that ball that makes things scary, and 4 Marines have died. That's fine. So now second factor coming on down. This is, this is a very quick second factory, and I'm assuming this is just for Widowmine drops, but we've only seen 1 Widowmine get made. And this is second factory before eBay. This is extremely interesting coming in from Maru. And I mean, in part, yeah, he's going to get drilling claws really quickly, but again, extremely interesting build from Maru in this game. Really just looking to put the pressure on Serral's economy, force him to multitask beyond what Serral believes he can do. Because again, Serral's strength is not necessarily his multitasking. It's very good. His micro, sure, also extremely good, but it's his map control, his understanding of the game flow that separates him from everyone else. And well, if you're just really making it hard for Serral to get a good read on the game flow by A, playing anachronistic builds, and B, by forcing him to just not have the time to scout and not have the time to really digest what he's seeing because you're just flying all over the map, well, maybe that's what you're going to be going for here is now. There we go. The detection is here, and the bio's going to look to stim on into this 4th base, and I don't think this is going to stand up. Yeah, it's going to have to get canceled here, and already we're seeing some value here from Maru off of this 2-1-1. I said at the start of game 1, I don't think that this is going to be that. I mean, I don't think the 4th base goes down. Right? That's just extremely unlikely against a 2-1-1 in this day and age. But, well, that's not what's happening. Is the 4th base has been canceled and killed by these kind of 2-1-1 mid-game pushes in, I want to say, 2 of these 3 games in this series. So Maru, it really just feels like every time he goes for this build, he gets more. All right, game 1, he really didn't get anything. He had to go to the late game, and honestly, it took a kind of a tech path mistake from Serral to really let Maru back into it, going into those ultras and really not capitalizing on his advantages as well. Because I just don't like ultras in this meta. You know, you may disagree with me, but anyway. And now we have Maru. He's going to go on in Widowmine drops. He's going to try to find some value, and you know, folks, it doesn't have to be all that great. Or not all. I should say, not all the drops really have to land. It's all down to that one. So, you know, 5 may fail, and then suddenly you get a Widowmine that lands on everything. If Serral's paying attention, Serral, you're paying attention here. Yeah, Maru's found the spot. 11 workers go down. Suddenly it's all worth it. Yeah, you lose, what, 5, 6 Widowmines. But you get 11 workers. And, oh, no. Serral, he doesn't see it. Serral thought he'd cleaned this up already, I guess, or thought he had detections, not worried about it. So Widowmines, and the target fire from Maru, fantastic. Serral, last second splits. But 10 more workers go down, and this is the value that Maru's been looking for. Serral down to 60 workers, and it's not like he can afford to drone up all that hard because the pressure for Maru is going to keep coming. It's actually, you know what? As I say that, it's just going to be committed Widowmine pressure for the time being. I say that's going to be rather nice. Widowmine shot's going to go on up, and hey, Queen transfuses, not all that much. But 21 workers, well, that's made it all worth it here for Maru as he's got his 2-2 underway. I do like this from Serral. A Widowmine tech, Lingby and Hydra is fantastic, as of course Hydras do outrange Widowmines. So you have that value there. And B, you have this kind of core of your army that you're not really expecting to trade out. The Hydras, you get up to 10, 12 of them, however, 8, whatever Serral wants to go for. And you kind of keep that as the bulk of your army. And it's the Lings and the Banes that trade on out. So that's always going to be rather nice. That being said, I don't think we've seen any Hydras get made, which is somewhat surprising considering the fact that Serral is actually getting Hydra upgrades. I would understand if this was just, okay, well, this is for quick Lurker tech. It's Lingbane into Lurker. Okay, sure. And maybe you get Hydras later. But this is getting Groove Spines, right? This is getting Hydra range, which does kind of imply that you would actually want to do something with those Hydras. So we're going to have to see whether he goes for that. As once again, we have Widowmine drops in, but looks like the value was only that brief burst as only 2 workers will go down. That's fine. Now Maru, once again, he's kind of found this position where the crew spread is really not as significant as it is anywhere else. So he's going to burrow Widowmines on forward. And Widowmine shot actually on a lot of these banelings means he can target them, fire them down if he wants. And those Widowmine shots are fantastic. So many banelings have gone down. And yeah, maybe Maru's going to be forced back off a creep. That's fine. A lot of those banelings, that was a lot of banelings that just died. Probably like 10, 12 banelings. And Maru's, once again, he's just opening up a big army supply late here. He's got his 4th base just about done. And he's going to look to float that on over soon. And this rally on the right-hand side is really just oppressive. As Maru, he's up 20 odd army supply. His 2-2 is going to be done faster than his opponent's. Not by much, but he will have an upgrade timing just for a little bit. And there we go. So we got Lurker Den on the way down. And there are some Hydras in this army now, adding a little bit of extra DPS, but that was not a great engagement here. As all the Banelings, they connect on the Marauders. The core Marines are still alive, going on in, and we're starting to see some Hydras get target fight on down. It's a big surround from Serral. Can he make the engagement happen? Banelings are going to connect on in, and this looks like it may be just enough, but no, the rally coming in from Maru. It's going to look to push his advantage here. Not a lot of Banelings left, but they're going to look to have to make the engagements of their short little lives here. Serral looks to roll on in. Marauders staying strong in the Marines, microing behind them. It's all down to Hydra Queen. And Hydra Queen, they're only on 1-1. We talked about that timing. The 2-2 versus 1-1 is not being all that big, so most likely not all that significant. But Maru, he's taking advantage of it here. The Queens are starting to fall on down, running out of transfuse energy as they try to bolster this 4th base location. Serral does not have a 5th, by the way, so even if he holds here, he's going to be even on economy with the Terran players. The splits are going to be fantastic. The Banelings are running down, and it's going to be GG. Maru, in dominant fashion, is going to take game number 3. He's going to take the series, and he's going to move on to the semifinals here of ASUS ROG 2021. What a game.